Okay, I'd like to thank everybody for coming and welcome you to our junior parent night for the class of 2023. I am Mr. O'Brien, the Director of Guidance for the district. I'm joined by Mrs. Schachter, Mrs. Gluck, Ms. Silverstein, our guidance counselors, and Dr. Lynn Maza, our Director of Pupil Personnel Services, is here as well. And we put this evening together as an opportunity for our 11th grade families to start to get a look down the road at what they can expect to see from the upcoming more active phase of the college application process. So our plan for this evening is just to give an overview, not just of the considerations that students should have in mind as they begin to plan, but also what some of the more technical aspects of the process will be as well. And we'll start so we can get that information to you in a timely fashion. There's a lot to go through, but just what to expect from the night. I'm going to start off by sharing just some thoughts and some considerations I'd like each family to hold with them as they approach the planning process. We'll also give an overview of the answers to the who, what, where, how, and when of college applications. These are the questions that students should expect to be able to answer as they embark on this process, and we'll go over more of that later. A very brief overview of financial aid, and then a few closing reminders. So we'll start off just as you begin to plan this process. One really key detail that is incredibly important to keep in mind is that I ask each student here in this meeting tonight, each 11th grader, as well as all of their parents, to remember that success in this process should not be defined for you as acceptance to any one particular college or university. All of you have done a tremendous amount of work that you should be proud of through the last, at what will become the last 4 years when you get through senior year of your high school career. This focus and this energy that you've put in, the goal of which has been to provide you with multiple positive outcomes, multiple opportunities. No one school should be any student's definition of success. A rejection letter, and you will receive them, should not be considered a failure. All of the colleges and universities to which students apply each year, the most selective especially, will reject thousands of applicants, many of whom are going to be fully qualified every admissions cycle. Your goal instead, as you approach this process, should be to find schools that are a particular fit for you, that meet the different criteria you have for yourself. Major strength of that program, cost that fits your family's needs, a geography that fits your family's needs. The feel of the campus as you walk on it should be something that you're comfortable with. If you build your college application list properly, all of the schools on that list should be a fit. You may be rejected to some, you will be accepted to others. And the goal is to, again, work on getting yourself connected with schools that are a fit. Don't worry about a school that the merchandise is impressive. Don't worry about finding those quote unquote bumper sticker schools. Find those schools that will get you the program, the preparation for your future career, and the value that you've done the work to earn for yourself, and focus on that. So just before we get into our evening here tonight, I actually want to take a look back at our junior college planning night from last year. That event, we were very happy to be able to host Mr. Topher Bordeaux, who is the admissions counselor from Dartmouth College. So Mr. Bordeaux, for those of you who don't know him, is the admissions counselor for our region at Dartmouth. He's an Ivy League admissions counselor with many years of experience. And he gave a look from the other side of the table to those in attendance last year at what to expect from the process. I just want to play a brief excerpt from that interview this evening, just to kind of drive home the point I made. Mr. Bordeaux spoke a little bit about what highly competitive admissions means, and really laid out from his perspective. And bear in mind, for those of you who apply to Dartmouth College, he's the individual that'll be reading your application, what folks in those seats look for and how that process is approached for them. So we can just have a listen, again, from the words of not just myself, but also an Ivy League college admissions rep.
I'll just wrap up my remarks, and then if it's okay with Sean, I can take questions. With just a little bit about what happens after your students click submit. the work that my colleagues and I do, during the winter months, and what highly selective admissions really means. The short version is, it just means there are many, many more qualified candidates than spots. At some level, like evaluating it, like ranking becomes silly. Like really, we're not ranking the however many thousand kids apply and taking the top 1150. We're looking to build a class of 1150 separate, distinct, constructive, and exciting voices. I mean, we want them all to be different voices, bringing different perspectives, different backgrounds, different academic interests to campus. We need to be convinced that they can not just handle the rigor of a Dartmouth curriculum, but thrive in the rigor of a Dartmouth curriculum. And, our curriculum is a little bit different than other schools. We don't have semesters, we have academic quarters. They're 10 weeks long. The pace is a little bit quicker. Students take only 3 courses at a time instead of 4 or 5. Those courses move pretty quickly. So we're kind of looking for students who fit with that kind of curricular delivery. We're looking for students, again, who are going to contribute to our community, and, who aren't just going to, survive here, but are going to thrive here, and are going to help other students thrive too. So, it's the highly selective piece of that is really about looking for fit. Academics are a big part of it. I would say, broadly speaking, 2/3 of a class that applies is academically qualified to do the work. So if we have 25,000 kids applying a year, let's say 16,000 kids roughly can do the work at Dartmouth, they would be fine. We could admit a tenth of those kids. I would say of those 16,000, probably 8,000, have really eye-popping credentials. And, so about a third of our pool is qualified to thrive at Dartmouth academically. And we could admit, an eighth of those? So it becomes less and less about ranking and more about just looking at the perspective students are going to bring to a class, trying to make nuanced decisions, trying to evaluate everything in the file and project how that applies to our community. It is really difficult, I will say this. Right now I'm reading applications all day long every day, and it's very exciting because in this part of the review process, I'm familiarizing myself with files. I'm making kind of an initial course sort, if you will. I think I mentioned that 2/3 of the students are qualified. The students who aren't qualified, I still review their file, but I might set it aside for a second colleague to look at to confirm that, okay, probably not qualified within the context of our pool. Doesn't mean the student's a bad student. No, the student's a great student. It's just our pool is very competitive. And then, later on this winter.
And so the reason I find it important and instructive to share that this evening is because one of the concerning trends that we have observed recently in guidance is, again, that increasing dependence on one particular outcome, where students can sometimes fall into the trap of becoming locked in to the idea that one particular college, one particular university, one particular outcome is the measure of success, and any others are met with as a silver medal or a disappointment. And that is absolutely not the way it should be approached. Again, I said it earlier, I'll say it again. All of you have done the work necessary to build yourselves into absolutely tremendous college candidates. It's entirely possible for you to have done the work and done everything right and not be a fit for one particular school, however, to be a fit for a number of other schools as well. So as you build that list, you may have that school that you're leaning more towards than others, and that's completely okay. But please do not allow yourself to get the sense that if one school does not respond to you with the answer that you had hoped for, that your process has not been a success, or that you are not as strong a candidate as you truly are. It's, Mr. Bordeaux said it himself. There are a number of qualified applicants, and sometimes those choices lead to students who could and would absolutely be successful at a particular school not earning admission. So all each of you can do is take the time that you've spent in high school and the work and start to put it together to continue to showcase yourself as the best possible applicant. Now, how do we do that? So that's where some of the questions that I mentioned earlier come into play. We find it helpful to break it down this way. So as you approach the process, you can think back to yourself, okay, what am I doing in this particular phase of the process? What am I doing in this particular phase? You should seek to answer throughout your process these 5 questions. First, who? You're identifying to the colleges that you apply to who you are as an applicant. You're going to share this to them, and Mr. Bordeaux mentions this further throughout that talk he gave last year, but he also alluded to a little bit there. Who are you as an applicant is shared through your essay, the supplementals that you'll answer, as well as the letters of recommendation that you share. We'll talk about it a little bit more just in a moment, but I cannot stress enough the importance of that college essay. As schools increasingly become more test optional, as students really compete against students who are equally academically qualified, that college essay becomes such a key piece of your application in differentiating yourself. So students, and again, we'll talk more about this in a little while, but just as you approach this, really give that piece the attention it deserves. I have found that in the past, not just here, but in many of the other schools in which I have worked, the second question, that what, tends to be what many students will focus their time and attention on. But the who is an incredibly important piece that you should not overlook. And that what question, what is when you inform schools as to what it is you've done during high school to make yourself a candidate who would be qualified for admission. You'd share this through your Wheatley transcript, sharing your SAT and ACT scores, as well as your activities resume. It's what you've done, the tangible actions that you've taken, your grades, your scores, they're all important. And it's another key piece that, again, we'll speak about as we go forward. You also want to answer the question as to where. Very simply, where is it that you intend to apply to school? You'll answer this through careful research using tools such as Naviance to find schools that, again, meet those fit criteria for you, so you can narrow down that list. The how addresses the practical action steps that each of you will take throughout this process in terms of which forms you'll submit to your schools, which forms you'll submit to guidance. And we'll go into that as we go forward as well. And then finally, we'll look to answer the question of when. When should I approach each part of the process? We'll go over the timeline that we in the guidance department expect each of you to follow as you begin the college application process. So with that, we'll go a little bit more into detail on the rest of these questions. I will turn the presentation over to, I believe, Mrs. Schachter now, who will share with us, the overview of the piece, who are you as an applicant, and how best to answer that.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Are you going to go to the next slide? Who are you as an applicant? We're going to talk a little bit about the college essay. The essay provides an opportunity for a student's voice to be heard. This will be more important than ever because most schools right now are continuing the test optional. So you really have to take time with the college essay. And remember who your audience is. It's a college rep that's really excited to get to know you. So the piece needs to be engaging. It needs to be proofread. But most important, it needs to be your voice. If you have 10 different people chop apart your essay, your voice will be lost. If you have someone write this essay who is in their 30s, 40s, 50s, or older, the reps will know it. They know the voice of a 17 or an 18-year-old. They're not looking really for anything extraordinary. They want to get to know you. Will you be a good roommate? Are you articulate? Can you form full sentences? Can you tell a good story? And we're happy to help you with that. And your teachers will help you with that. A lot of you will be working at the end of this year with your English teachers. You'll also hear a lot about supplemental essays on the Common App. And these also are really important. This isn't the time to write that you want to go to Tampa because it's in Florida. You need to dig deeper and let Tampa know that you know who they are. And they're going to read, why do you want to come to our school? That's when they're going to look. They want to know that you know who they are. You can't write a supplemental and have the answer that you could find on the front page of a college website. And again, we could help you with this. But the writing does take time. And that's when Mr. O'Brien was talking that we will provide a timeline. A lot of this will be done in June and then through the summer. And we could really set you up at the end of your junior year to have a draft in place of your college essay and a plan for the supplementals. Letters of recommendation. So as counselors, we write a letter for every one of our students. We take a lot of time and we personalize it, and we really want your voice in this with the Bragg Sheet. So on Naviance, and you'll get a lot of information tonight. It'll be much clearer when you start to go through the process. But there is a Bragg Sheet on Naviance. And again, it's important that you take time with this. Yes, we know all of you. We're very lucky to be in a small school that we know our students. But some of you are very humble and very shy and might have these amazing achievements that we don't know about. So when you write this Bragg Sheet, it serves two purposes. One is it helps us write a really great letter of rec for you, and maybe we'll highlight things that you're not sure where to put in your application. We also use it. We're going to advocate for you when we speak to college reps, and we use this as a cheat sheet to remember something that we might want to share and really highlight when we're speaking to those reps about you. So the Bragg Sheet, again, will really talk about this more in individual meetings, but it's something that at any time you could fill out. And parents, we do ask, you can always give us information. A lot of students have trouble speaking about themselves and their accomplishments. So we love if you can send us an email and highlight anything that you want to make sure. And then we know how to write a letter and how much to put in. We'll talk to the students, what you're writing your essay about, what teachers are writing back, because really the goal is to get as much information to those reps as possible. Juniors, we're going to ask you toward the end of this year, starting anytime in the spring really, to ask 2 teachers to write you letters of rec. And these will highlight the way that you've performed in a class. That doesn't mean that you had to get an A in that class. That means that we want a teacher that could speak to your character, your work ethic, your honesty, your integrity, and your effort. That might not have ended with an A in a class, but you might have worked really hard and formed a really great connection with the teacher. The teacher will probably ask you to about activities that you've done. They might also highlight some things that you've done throughout your high school career, but the teachers are going to write very specifically about how they know you in their classroom. And students are encouraged to sign all waiver forms. That means that you are waiving your right to read the letters of rec. Really, every student does that. It makes your letters much more credible. So whenever you're asked to sign that waiver, and that's on the Common App for the most part, and we'll explain all of this to you, but you'll sign off that you waive your right to read those letters. Okay? Next is, I'm not sure who's doing the what. Is it Miss Sophie? Okay.
Good evening, everyone. So what have I done to make me a qualified candidate? So colleges are going to look at the big picture. They're going to look at your high school transcripts. They're going to look at your classes, how well you've done in them, and they're going to look at that GPA that's on the bottom, but they're going to focus on how well you've done in the courses that you've taken. What your GPA looks like, they're going to look at the level of courses, There are some 8th grade classes that do factor into the GPA. That would be living environment, a foreign language, and a science living environment class. What college admissions officers are looking for is the academic growth over the years. They want to see that you are doing the best that you can in the most rigorous curriculum that you can handle, whatever that level is. There is no magic level. There is no magic number of AP classes. It's the most rigorous curriculum that you can handle. They want to see consistency in grades. They want to see academic growth. And obviously, they want to see that you are being successful. Now, as we're, go back. Okay, so as we're working on senior classes right now and making your schedules, I've met with almost all of you, and so have the other counselors. We're looking to make sure that your senior year schedule is consistent with what you've done the past 3 years, 4 years, including your 8th grade year here at Wheatley. We're not letting you take the easy way out. We want to maintain that rigorous schedule. Just to clarify, senior year does count. Your first quarter grades are sent for any early action schools that require them. And your mid-year grades are typically requested by any regular decision schools as well. And at the end of senior year, once you decide what school you're going to attend, we send a final GPA. Ideally, you want that GPA to match or be close to that GPA that the school admitted you with in the fall. Okay, switch. Okay, activity resume. Like I said, they're looking at the big picture. So we have our academics. Mrs. Schachter spoke about the college essay. Then we have the activities. What are we doing with activities? So activities include anything and everything that you've done inside of school and outside of school. So that can be community service, that can be athletics, that can be working at a soup kitchen, musical talents, awards, summer programs, summer jobs, educational programs, showing leadership. It could be doing community service, it could be working and training peers, or even babysitting. Where do you put that stuff? So sometimes students are a little intimidated by Naviance as an 8th grader. We're trying to break that and get them onto Naviance earlier and earlier. There is a resume in Naviance that we will be encouraging everyone to use. It's under the About Me section, and it's very easy to create your resume in Naviance, and you're going to add all of your activities into that program. When you're adding your activities onto your common application, you're going to list the top 10 important activities, and you're going to list them in order of importance. There are some schools that allow you to upload an additional resume, which is when you'll pull from your Naviance resume. Naviance does not move into the Common App. You do have to type it twice. Okay. Then we have college entrance exams. Many of you have heard about the SATs, the ACTs, with writing, without writing. So this slide talks a little bit about the difference between the SAT and the ACT. We don't recommend really one or the other. They both have the option of writing or no writing. They're very different from each other. You can go on to the CASA learning programs that all of our students have access to, and there is a little tab that says MTP, Method Test Prep, and students can go on to Method Test Prep for free. It's an online program that we use, and they can go through practice exams, practice questions, and really look to see what test might be a better fit for them. We do encourage students to take one of each, see which one they do better on, and then we use that moving forward. Obviously, we're always around to help answer any questions regarding the testing with students. Okay. If you are a student who receives accommodations, students who receive accommodations, we apply for accommodations at the end of 9th grade with the College Board. College Board, we send the applications in. Parents do have to sign off on forms, giving us permission to send and ask College Board to approve them. Once College Board sends the approval, you get what we call an SSD number. When you register for the SAT exam, you enter that SSD number on your accounts. If you register for an exam and you're not seeing that SSD number, or you're not seeing something that says extra time or time and a half, and you know your child receives that, please have them come to guidance right away so that we can help resolve the issue and make sure that they're signed up for the right exam. The ACT. ACT testing with accommodations, again, you have the choice to take the ACT with writing or without writing. The difference with the ACT is its own governing board. So we have to actually apply for accommodations at the time of each registration. So if you have accommodations, you have to let us know that you're applying to take the ACT, send the registration information into us, and then we apply for the accommodation. They review it, they can approve whatever we send in, or they can alter it, change it. Typically, they just really approve what we send in. They let us know, and then we move forward. My suggestion is if you know that you're going to be taking one of these exams and you have accommodations, we want to get that registration in early so that we can get the approval process done nice and early. Okay, college testing additional information. Students should plan to sit for some of these exams in the spring. Right now, a lot of institutions are still test optional. We don't know if colleges will continue to be test optional or if they're going to go back to testing. We already know that there are some schools who still require testing. The Florida State schools are one of those schools that require testing. So we always want to be sure that we're covering all of our bases. And if we know that we might be applying to a school, we want to make sure that we are meeting all requirements for admissions purposes before we're getting ready to apply. So starting the research now, looking to see what we need and making sure, sorry, my dog's barking, and looking to see what we might need so that we're all prepared. If you have questions about that, obviously let us know. Sometimes we don't know who will be changing their requirements, but we're trying to stay on top of it as best as we can. There are exams held at Wheatley. The March exam for the SAT is March 12th. In just keeping with the SAT, we have a March, May, and June SAT exam. So that's March 12th, May 7th, and June 4th. On April 2nd, we have a super secret ACT exam, which is just for Wheatley students. So there is a special code that you need to use at registration. Do not share this code with any other students outside of Wheatley. This is only for Wheatley students. So please make sure you register. It is such a nice setting to be testing at your own school, and it's only our students with our staff. And it's a nice day together. You'll get to see Mr. Stander for those of you who remember him. If you have any questions or you're looking for further information about dates or registering, please visit the College Board and the ACT.org. That's where you would actually register for the exams. And I think Ms. Gluck is next.
Hi, good evening. So I'm going to talk about the where. So where do you want to spend the next 4 years of your life? And with that, I've been meeting with some of my students already. And the biggest thing that I think our department as a whole wants to stress is the fit. Identifying that place that you want to be for 4 years. And I often have students say, well, what if I don't get into the school of my dreams? Should I just transfer? That could be a possibility, but realistically, we want you to find your home for those 4 years. So the strength of the program and your major is something to consider. And you may not know your major, and that's okay. But what I like to say is know things that you're interested in, know your passions, know your hobbies, because these are things, and you should be exploring them through your elective choices at Wheatley as well, as best as possible. But that kind of helps cultivate a major. And it is okay to go undecided at schools if you're truly not sure, or if you're deciding between a couple majors. But make sure, if you are looking for engineering at a particular school, that they actually have engineering at that school. You don't want to be stuck when they don't have a particular major. In addition to the fit, I really stress with the students, don't necessarily look at the name of the school, look at what they have to offer for you. So in some of my meetings, and if you're one of my students, you may have heard this before, I always say, would you consider Oklahoma City University? Many Wheatley students would be like, what are you talking about? Why would you even bring up Oklahoma, Mrs. Gluck? Well, if you are a musical theater student, that's actually one of the top musical theater schools in the country. Now, we don't necessarily have a ton of musical theater students, but each year we get a few, and that could be a school that they're applying to that's extremely strong and competitive for that particular major. So again, the fit for you is not necessarily a fit for your peer in the building at Wheatley. So again, the strength of the major is important. The typical student admission profile, looking at it, making sure that it fits your needs. The class sizes, you may hear college reps talk about the student to faculty ratio. That number is not as important to me as how many students are actually in a classroom. The reason being is that you're at a small school. You have very small classes, 25 students. Think about your learning style. Think about how you interact with your teacher. Is that something that you want? Do you want to be in a larger lecture hall where you could kind of be hidden back? I went to a large university. I had two very drastically different majors, theater and communication. Theater, I had 12 students in a class. Communications, at some points, I had 400 students. Some schools will take attendance, some will connect, in a smaller groups as well, but just knowing how you learn best is so important to look at through this process. The location, do you want to be close to home? Do you want to be far away from home? That's also a family decision. Moms, dads, guardians, please speak with your children to figure out what is going to be the best option for you, and how you're going to navigate getting to and from school. I know that has shifted a lot with the COVID-19 pandemic, but certainly many families are opting to explore various regions of our country because of amazing programs that there are to offer. The cost of the college is also in consideration, private versus public. The public institutions for us here, specifically in New York State, are the SUNY and the CUNY systems. But that's not to say you can't rule out the public institutions that are out of state. So there are out of state schools. For example, a University of Delaware is considered that. Some of them are more cost effective. Some are not necessarily the case. But look at the costs when, looking at some of the fit for you in the school. Is that going to meet your needs? And think about the future from the future. So for example, if you know that you want to go into medicine, you may think about whether it's physical therapy, whether it's a doctoral program for an MD, you might have additional schooling. So looking at the cost is important too. And then of course, supports. Ms. Silverstein touched upon the supports a little bit as well. Students with disabilities should reach out to each office of disability for support. So once you've been admitted to an institution, they're going to read your application without knowing there's any form of disability. And if you were to be admitted, you want to reach out to the school to discuss your accommodations and how they can personalize your education there. In addition, any mental health and safety services, all campuses have that, and they are prioritizing that mental health piece now. Reach out. Know that you will have the support there, but learn and understand what they can offer to you directly. Naviance and family connection. So all of you should have access to your Naviance account. Even last year, we went into your classrooms and we did some career interest profiling. We got you onto the resume. If you've started your junior college meetings with your counselor, you have heard about Naviance. If you do not have access to Naviance, we can reset it for you, not a problem. Parents, yes, there's a way for you to get onto Naviance through your own account, but we don't necessarily recommend that because you don't have the same view as your student. So we Recommend students give your parents access to the Naviance account, work with them together, because again, this is a joint process. The three of us, or four of us, five of us, whoever, your counselor, your parents, guardians, student, even maybe a sibling, are all going to work together on this process. So, the more that is engaged, the more that's invested in it is very helpful. So students are going to utilize Naviance to, like I said, career pathways. You did that last year. So go back to that. You can look at it, look at your results, see what some things that you're interested in or that might be a good career fit for you. And that's something that you can continue to have that conversation with your counselor. As you proceed through the college search, Naviance will become more important, not only on searching, but again, Ms. Schachter talked about the Bragg Sheet. You're going to fill that out for us so that we have more context to provide colleges and also enhance our recommendation letter for you. If you have any questions about that, you're going to want to speak to, again, your counselor. Additionally, for next year, we will have some college representatives, whether it's in person or virtual, come to our school. You're going to utilize Naviance to register for it. And we'll get into that a little bit. For a more detailed overview of some of the features that our Naviance has to offer, Mr. O'Brien has put together a presentation that he presented to juniors and senior parents on the overview. So you can take a look at that. It will be available in this presentation after. The college search tool, one of the most valuable search tools, and I started exploring this with many of my students because it allows you to put specific criteria that you want. It's called the College SuperMatch is one of the tools, and you have the option to pick. You could pick the location, you could pick a specific state, you could pick a major, the size of the school, and everything to the cost. You can even input your GPA and standardized test scores if you're choosing to. Then it comes up with a list and it gives you a match. What I tell all my students is look at the match, even if it says 70% or 80%. Reason being, there's a Y button. That Y button will actually give you context as to why it is or is not a match. So if you set the criteria to you're only looking for schools with about 10,000 undergraduate students and this school has 11,000, it's going to mark it off and lower the percentage of a match. So that might still be a good fit for you, but you want to just take into context what criteria you set and what the outcomes are. So that's something that we can also explore. If you have trouble navigating that, the counselors are happy to help you get started on those college SuperMatch searches. And again, it helps narrow down schools and institutions that you can research. We've also have the scattergram feature in Naviance, which allows you to compare other Wheatley students. You don't know who, it's anonymous, but it allows you, it has all the academic information. So the standardized test scores, if we had it in the system, as well as the GPAs, and it will show you where you fit if your information is in the system compared to other students from Wheatley in the past years, how they've matched up with the schools. Use it as a tool. It is not, the exact answer. Just because you meet that criteria, and this is an example of it, it doesn't mean you're going to 100% get admitted to the school. Again, we have to think about all the extra factors. And with the test optional piece at the schools right now, that's throwing things into a little bit of a different mix. But it is still a good resource to kind of see, am I meeting what the academic standards are to the school? If so, is this going to be a reach school? Is it going to be a target school or a safe school for me? Campus visits. So as you gather information and determine whether a school is going to be a good fit for you, we'd like you to start engaging in visits at the campus. You may not be able to travel. We understand there's many restrictions right now, and it might be difficult in colder months. Many schools have virtual tours. Please take that first. If you're hesitant or you're not sure, if you happen to be visiting a family member or somebody in an area, go take a look on the college campus, or even go to some of our local schools in the area. Go look at Hofstra, go look at Stony Brook, Adelphi, even NYU. Why? Very different feels on each campus. And even if you're not necessarily looking to apply to those particular schools, it gives you a sense of what the campus has to offer. And that helps the counselors, as well as you, figure out additional schools that might correlate to those specific needs that you might have. But if you do get to the campus, make sure you schedule a tour through the Office of Admissions. You might have a best friend who attends the school, and they're going to show you all the ins and outs, the nooks and crannies. That's fantastic. But that's not letting the college know that you made an effort to visit the school. You want to show that demonstrated interest. Not all schools track it, but if they do, or if it's between two students that they feel are equal in their eyes, I would hope that demonstrated interest would just help your application. So you want to make that connection, establish through the Office of Admissions, take the tour there, ask questions. If an admissions representative after the tour is willing to have a conversation with you, just make sure before you go on that visit, you do a little research about the school or something interesting. Maybe they have an event going on that you can talk about that's of interest to you. And then I always say, take a look at the dorms. That's where you're going to live. And also eat some of the food. That's what you're going to have when you're there. So you have expectations. You're going to see the reality like it shows in the picture. Nobody buys a home without taking a tour. So make sure that you do that as well for yourself. College representative visits. In September, in senior year, we will have the opportunity to have colleges connect with us for visits. Again, the past 2 years, we've had it virtual. It is during the school day. It is open for Wheatley students only, but it's your opportunity to connect and build that rapport with the reps. If it's a class you cannot miss, let us know. We'll give you their email address. Reach out to them after. They're pretty understanding if you had Calc BC and you don't want to miss the class for that day. But if it's an opportunity that you can make it, that's great. We'll have a full list on Naviance so that this way you are able to see. Your counselor can help you, navigate which visits might be the best choices for you based on, your list of schools. And then we ask that you pre-register through Naviance to attend these college rep visits. And this is just an example of an email that one of our other counselors, Dr. Warner, would send out to the students upon their registration that day of a rep visit. So it will tell you which college is coming. And again, this year it was remote. So she provided the Zoom or Google Meet link to the students so that they have access to it. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Schachter again to talk about the how.
Okay. How do you go about making all of this work? Okay. So you might have by now heard about the Common Application. That's the main application that students use. There are over 750 colleges on the Common App. It's very user-friendly, and you could go and check it out at any time just to see what they'll be asking. And again, we could help you with that. Part of the Common Application also has those supplemental applications that I was telling you about, the multi-step, the essays. And not that you're going to understand this right now, but your Common App and your Naviance, we're going to link together. They speak to each other, which helps us to get your transcript, the school profile, everything out to the schools that you've applied to on the Common App. There's also something called the Coalition. There's around 160 colleges on the Coalition. However, if the college is on the Common App and the Coalition, it's usually easier to stick with the Common App as much as possible. In rare instances, there might be a college that is just Coalition exclusive, and then you would have to access the Coalition for those schools. It is more time consuming, the Coalition. That's why I say if given the choice, you'll want to stick with the Common App, because for the Coalition, you're required to self-report all your high school grades. The essays might be a little different, but we'll get you through it. If you have to do the Coalition, it's not a problem. And then there are school-specific applications where you will go directly to the school. For instance, a CUNY school, a city university school, some of the SUNY schools, you will go directly to that college's website to access their application. Also, sometimes you might get an email offering you a free application if you use the individual college's own application. So at that time, you might access that as well. It's all different avenues of just getting the same information basically into your file and your application together. So whatever you end up using, but the common app for the most part will be the application that most of you are using for your colleges. So this is the process of getting everything that we need to ensure that your transcript, your school profile, the letters of rec, everything that we're responsible for in the guidance office to get to the schools that you're applying to. The way this will work is in your early in your senior year, you'll make an appointment with us. This is a process that we need to sit down and go through with you. We can't just accept documents that are left on our door or with our secretaries. We really need to sit with you. The first form that you'll be giving in, we need to receive 2 weeks before your deadline. And that's in bold because it's important that we have enough time to write your letter, get the teachers' letters, make sure we have everything we need to get your applications in before a deadline. And it does take time. So we ask to give us 2 weeks leeway from the time that you give us the forms that I'll be talking about in a minute before we can then get everything out and ensure that we get everything before your deadlines. Again, this is going to make a lot more sense once you're actually in this process, but it's really important to get a little heads up of what's coming, and hopefully that'll alleviate some of the anxiety as well. There are 2 important forms. One is called the Transcript Request form. That is going to list the schools that you're applying to, the deadline, how you're applying, and if you're using the Common App or not. All forms, this one and the other one I'm about to talk about, have to be signed by student and parent. And the reason for this is that we need parents' permission to send out transcripts for all of the students. So this way parents know exactly where their students are applying, and we have permission to do that. So that's really important that we get that transcript request form 2 weeks before your deadline, as well as the transcript verification form. In September, we will give you a copy of the transcript that will be sent to the schools. It will include classes in progress so that the schools, colleges will see the courses that you're taking senior year. And that's really important. That's why we take so much time figuring out for juniors this year what courses are appropriate for next year. They will be part of your transcript. That transcript verification form tells us that you, student and parent, have looked over your transcript and that you approve it, that it's accurate. You'll see everything, regions, most of them will be waived at this point possibly, but you'll see everything before we send that out. When you meet with us, you will have completed your resume on Naviance and your Bragg Sheet. Again, this is all done so that we can get all that information out to the colleges. Again, I know this is a lot of information, but once we're doing this with you, we're going to make sure that you get these forms done. We'll send out emails and reminders so that you will not have a problem meeting your deadlines. Transcript verification form I just spoke about. You'll get that in September. You'll get a digital transcript verification form. If you're in SWS, then you will also create an SWS transcript that Pat Clark will sign off on, and we'll attach that to your Wheatley transcript. You've done a lot of great work within SWS, a lot of different classes. So we want to share that with the colleges. And in the school profile, it actually explains a lot about SWS. And now that's the transcript request form that Mr. O'Brien has on the screen. So again, this will have the colleges you're applying to. Let's say for early action, again, this will make more sense when you're doing it. But if you have a November 1st deadline and you know there are 5 schools, you can put just your early schools on this form. Give it to us. That starts the process. And then you could give us another form a little later on with maybe your regular deadline, which might be January 1st. So you could give us more than one form as you create your list. And again, if you look at it, it's going to have the name of the college. Right on top, it'll explain what a student needs to give us. Student initials, the date that we get it. So that's going to be the 2 weeks before at least. The name of the colleges, the application type, how are you applying to this college? Early action, early decision, rolling, regular. We'll explain all of this to you. You'll tell us if it's on the Common App and the deadline date. You will give us some information on the bottom. You'll hear a lot about something called FERPA. You will sign off that, which I had told you earlier, you're going to waive your right to read any letters. Student signs and date, parent signs and date. Okay, we're on to the when. I don't know who's doing that.
That would be me. Thank you, Mrs. Schachter. Okay, so the final component of this presentation really is the when, and that's just the discussion of, as we take everything we've discussed so far, the question for many of you, and the question I know parents have most often is, when should I begin each part in the process? How early is too early? How late is too late? So what we have for you here is the tentative college application timeline. The piece we're in now, this sort of starting point that is junior parent night. Really now what we'd like to do in the months of January and February, be sure to be scheduling your junior planning conferences. On December 20th, I sent out a letter both to parents and students with some information as to what to expect in the upcoming months for the class of 2023. In that letter was information on scheduling your junior planning conferences, as well as the links to schedule your meetings individually with each counselor. So the next step right after tonight will be, if you have not done so already, to schedule your child's junior planning meeting. That will be where we'll take a lot of the general information that we spoke about tonight, and we'll specify it down and tailor it to each individual student. So each junior and their family have the opportunity to meet with their counselor one-to-one to speak about their individualized process. So in that letter I shared out, as well as posted on the guidance department website, are links to the app is called Calendly, where you select your counselor's particular link, and it'll give you their availability to schedule a junior planning conference. We're going to ask that parents for those conferences attend remotely, just due to the size of our counselors' offices, to ensure we maintain proper social distancing. Students can attend the meet within the counselor's office. We do have space for one student at 6 feet apart. So again, if you have not done so already, you can refer either to my December 20th mailer, which will be linked in this presentation, which I'll share out tomorrow, or the guidance department website. The links are available on each of those. And then January through June, over the next several months, what you're able to do as well is make sure you sit for at least one administration of either the SAT or ACT, whichever you choose to take, or in my opinion, preferably both. That'll give you the opportunity to see how you feel about each assessment, which one you feel more comfortable with, which one you prefer. You're able to compare your scores and then make a determination moving forward, which one you'll continue your preparation for and sit for again. Many of you may have chosen to take the PSAT this October and the practice ACT offered in December. You can certainly use both of those scores as a guide. But even if you did not sit for those, There are numerous practice opportunities available online. Ms. Silverstein mentioned our Method Learning partnership, which you can access through your Castle Learning account. That'll give you access to free SAT and ACT prep through the district. Taking those sample questions, if you did not take one of the full-length practice tests, can give you an idea of what your comfort level is. But again, make sure you're sitting for at least one administration of those entrance exams. In addition, you should be continuing to update your activities resume in Naviance. Doing it piece by piece saves you that stress, students, of having to make sure over the summer you're trying to remember, what did I do in September of freshman year? Did I do this? Did I start this in 10th grade? Give yourself the time, work on it bit by bit, fine tune it, share it with your counselor. They'll go over it with you. Start to do that over the course of this winter, January through June. And of course, you want to be researching your colleges as well. Ms. Gluck talked about Naviance. You get a more in-depth look into that in your junior meeting. And it is linked in the presentation, again, which I'll be sharing out. It can also be accessed on the Guidance Department YouTube channel. That junior and senior parent Naviance information overview I gave in the fall. I have the full-length video there where I do break down in detail the college search feature, the college visit scheduler, how to request letters of recommendation through Naviance. All of those pieces are broken down into detail there. But so that's really what you want to utilize overarching throughout the next 6 months. Make sure you're prepping and sitting for one administration of those exams. Fine-tune that activities resume and begin your college research following that junior meeting. April and May of this spring, you want to make sure you've requested letters of recommendation from at least 2 of your teachers, and use that time as well to complete that college Bragg Sheet in Naviance. That's roughly the time we recommend you do it. You can enter those requests for the teachers who agree to write the letters into Naviance, as I just mentioned. They'll be entered as a general request rather than a college-specific request under the colleges tab in Naviance. And again, for a full overview of that, that can be found in that fall junior, senior parent Naviance overview I gave. And then finally, this summer, June through August, you want to make sure you're developing and editing that college essay draft, as Mrs. Schachter had spoken about. We want to make sure that your voice comes through as cleanly and clearly as possible. So for that reason, please do make sure you're giving that essay the time it deserves. In addition, you want to be continuing to review the college lists you've been developing. And as you're developing those college lists, Naviance will provide you with a list of the typical deadlines for each of those schools you're applying to. Start to take note of that. Plan your application submission dates, so when you return in the fall, you can connect with your counselor and develop that final plan that will be time specific. In addition, over the summer, you want to make sure you're preparing for additional administrations of the SAT or ACT if you were unsatisfied with your scores from the spring. So if you feel you can do better, bear in mind that many of the institutions will super score your SAT and ACT, which means they'll take your, insofar as the SAT is concerned, your highest math and your highest verbal score, put them together, even from different administrations of the exam, to give you one high total super score. So if you're applying to a college, which most will, that super scores, it could be in your best interest to take those exams more than once. Even if your performance happens to dip in one category, if you raise your score in another a significant amount, that can help you for your overall admissibility for schools to which you do choose to send test scores. So utilize the summer if you decide you're going to test again, to prepare so you can then register for that next administration. And then finally, late September through early November of your senior year, we'll be looking at, obviously, your schedules in the early part of September, as always. But once we get through that initial, I would say, 2 weeks of the school year, that's where you're going to reconnect with your counselor for your senior college meeting. That's where you're going to go to senior parent night, where we'll give an overview again of so many of these steps that we've discussed tonight, to make sure it's fresh in your mind. We certainly don't expect you to remember everything we discuss here on January 13th, down the road on September 15th of 2022. So we will bring all of you and your families back together so we can discuss this again. You're able to submit your college applications directly as soon as you feel they're ready. I do encourage you to meet with your counselor counselor just to go over them before you press submit. However, if you're close to a deadline and you have all the pieces in place, you certainly are able to push submit, and then connect with your counselor to submit those transcript processing forms that Ms. Schachter spoke about. Also, in early fall of next year, starting October 1st, you're able to submit your FAFSA form, which is your application for student aid, which I'll go over briefly in just a moment. So we talked about the application deadlines a little bit, the different types of application deadline that schools observe. And knowing this will be important as you start to plan out that timetable for your fall. There are a few different types of applications schools allow students to complete. The first of which we'll go over is early decision. This is a binding agreement where a student agrees at the time of application, when they apply early decision, that if accepted to a school, they will attend. Once they receive their decision, if it's a positive decision from the school, the student is required to withdraw their other applications to other institutions. You can only apply early decision to one school, and you would typically hear the results from your early decision schools on or about December 15th. Typically, an early decision deadline falls around November 1st. There are an increasing number of schools with October 15th deadlines. And again, you'll be able to see that in Naviance as you research the schools. But this is why, as you're starting to hear these dates, Ms. Schachter emphasized the importance of that 2-week period. October 15th doesn't leave a tremendous amount of lead time for the counselors, the teachers, and everyone to make sure that they have all of your pieces ready to go. The earlier a counselor knows you intend to apply to a school with an October 15th or November 1st deadline, the more quickly they can make sure they have their materials ready to go. So once your application is in, they're not waiting on you. We want to make sure that we, just as you know, and just as you need to plan, we know what your plan is so we can make sure we're supporting you in the best way possible. So again, early decision, it's one of the earlier forms of application. It is legally binding. You're only able to apply to one school early decision. The advantage to applying early decision is that the admit rate does tend to be higher. Many schools are drawing their freshman classes largely from the early decision and early action pools. And early action is a non-binding application. Again, the deadline tends to be slightly earlier than the standard or regular admissions deadline. And you'll typically hear your decisions from early action schools by mid-late December as well. And again, the difference there really is it's non-binding. You can apply to as many schools early action as you would like and as you are able. And you are under no obligation to attend early action schools when accepted. So it's another opportunity. Our recommendation is always students apply early when possible. Again, that's why this research in the spring and summer is so important. So you have your deadlines, you know your timetable, you can work together with your counselor to put together a schedule that makes sense. Rolling admissions is another type of admission you'll see. That just means first come, first serve, essentially. As the applications are processed and received, they're reviewed, decisions are rendered, and those decisions are handed out. So again, applying early under rolling admissions means you'll get your decision that much sooner as well. And then regular decision. That means that schools have a specific deadline and the decisions are made after that deadline has passed. Typically, you'll hear responses from your regular decision schools in early April. There are some other types of applications, and again, single choice early action, restrictive early action. I have the information here in the interest and respect of time to make sure I get to everything that we have in the presentation. This is here. The slides will be shared. We will be going over this further, both in the junior meetings as well as during the senior parent night. But those early decision, early action, rolling admission, and regular decision are the most common types of application deadlines that students will encounter. As the parent of a senior myself, the financial aid and cost piece of college is something that has become increasingly near and dear to my heart. So just know I've listed here a few different websites and resources that you'll be able to utilize as you start to look for financial aid. This is something that you don't need to necessarily worry about now. I say that as your checkbook scream, but the reality is the application for federal student aid, the free application for federal student aid, will not open for the class of 2023 until October 1st of 22. So that'll be the earliest date students can apply for financial aid. We will hold a financial aid night in early October, as we have done in the past, where we'll give a much more in-depth overview of the financial aid process. Just a quick word on scholarships. Students are encouraged. Obviously, merit money is available to students who are academically qualified. Students can also take into consideration some of the scholarship websites we have there. They'll be listed on the Wheatley website, at fastweb.com, scholarships.com. But again, for a greater, more in-depth overview of financial aid, we will have our financial aid night for the class of 23 this coming October. In addition, if you would like a sneak peek ahead, on the guidance department's YouTube channel, I do have a link to the video from the financial aid presentation from this past fall of 21, as well as a link to a series of videos by Miss Amy Thompson. She's the director of financial aid for St. Joseph's College. She put together a great 3-video series just that gives an overview of the financial aid process, not just for St. Joseph's, but in general. So that's incredibly informative as well. And again, any specific questions you have regarding scholarships, financial aid can be addressed as well in your individual junior planning meetings. So right before I open it up to questions, just a final few reminders. Again, I'll be sharing both the recording of this presentation tomorrow morning, as well as all the presentation slides. You'll be able to access these links. Schedule your junior planning conferences as soon as possible if you haven't already done so. You can access the links right there under that bullet point. In addition, I've referenced it a few times, but the East Williston Counselor's Corner YouTube channel, with all the challenges and frustrations that the pandemic has brought, in my opinion, one of the positives has been the opportunity to give these events virtually, and then the opportunity to use technology to record them. So for those of you who maybe haven't been able to make some of the nights and some of the presentations that we've referenced, at least in the last year or so since September, we have been recording them and uploading them to our department YouTube channel. So I referenced last year's financial aid night. I played that clip from Mr. Bordeaux's presentation to the current seniors at our junior parent night last year. That full presentation is there. The junior senior parent Naviance overview from this past fall, where I review in depth some of the different tools that Naviance has to offer, that is there, as well as several other informational nights that we've had. So please do feel free to follow that link and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That is where I post all the evening events we do offer. I definitely recommend giving a listen to Mr. Bordeaux's full presentation from last year, from that junior parent night. It was really an exceptional look behind the curtain at the other side of the table in the admissions process. He really did give a lot of great insight, not just into the meaning of highly selective admissions, but into the different pieces, especially essay writing. He really spoke to, in his opinion, what makes an effective essay. So please do give those a watch as well. And then finally, just some reminders, as we discussed. Make sure you're doing your research so you can watch those deadlines, and be sure to alert your counselors as to what deadlines you anticipate using. The counselors put a great deal of effort, energy, and care into crafting the supporting documents for your applications. They want to put out the best possible letters of recommendation for each and every one of you. And in order to do that, they need to be sure that they have the time to do so. So the earlier they know you plan to apply by a certain date, the more opportunity they have to be sure that they'll have the best possible supporting pieces in place for you in time for your application. Our goal for each and every one of you is that you find success in this process, and you make sure that you have the opportunity to match with those schools that are the fit for you that you deserve. So it's please make sure early planning is the key. Continue to meet with your counselor this spring as you're doing your research. Keep them in the loop. Keep them aware of the schools you're looking at, the application type deadlines that you might have planned, especially if you're looking at an early decision school. And finally, we've talked about it all night, but prioritize the right fit over the right name. there will always be those schools for each class that, you know, are being talked about as the big get, or oh, I want to get here, or oh, did you hear he or she is applying there. Focus on finding the school that makes the most sense, or schools that make the most sense for you. Each and every one of you in your own way, in your own right, has done the necessary work to put you in a position to be successful. Do that research, partner with your counselors, ask them questions, utilize Naviance, think about what your interests are, craft the list that is of schools that are the best fit for you to enable you to have the best level of success from this process you can find. And then finally, I mentioned the fact that, you know, tonight is very informationally dense. And we don't anticipate that you and the juniors will remember all of this even 10 minutes after you walk out of here, or you sign off from here. That's fine. Again, you'll have that opportunity to brush up on this and to get more information during that junior planning conference. In addition, we used to have an event called the Junior Kickoff, where we would bring the juniors together in small groups with their guidance counselor for an opportunity to ask questions, review the process, and start to plan. We had in the past done it in December, but what we have found is doing that in December was a little bit too early. And just as it's difficult for students in June to remember some of the things that we discussed in the finer points in January, it was even more difficult to remember them from December. So we've moved the junior kickoff to the end of school, May 25th. We're renaming it the summer send-off. So May 25th, during ninth period, after AP exams are done, before Regents exams and all the end of year action begins to happen, we're going to bring the juniors back together. They'll have had time to sit for an administration of the SAT or ACT. They'll have completed their junior planning conference. They'll have the opportunity to meet with their counselor, ask additional questions. We'll refresh them on some of the things we expect them to be completing before the end of school, as well as we move into the summer, just to make sure they're in the best position possible to be prepared for next year. And again, we'll come together during senior parent night next year, during your senior planning conferences. This is the first of many conversations on this process for you and your children. And we really just will do whatever it takes to make sure that it goes as smoothly as possible, and we meet with as much success as possible. So again, just thank you to all the members of the guidance department that worked together on the presentation. Dr. Lynn Mazza, again, as I said, the director of PPS, provided a lot of support as well in terms of information for our students who might be applying to colleges with accommodations. I'm more than happy to open it up to questions if you have any. And again, thank you all for your time tonight. I know it was long. I know it was a lot of information, but I really appreciate you all bearing with us. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, you can feel free to unmute. You can type them in the chat. When Naviance gives a match on a college, is it based on nationwide, just Wheatley admissions? Sorry, my screen's blocked. Nationwide, just Wheatley admissions, or both? So if I'm not mistaken, and counselors correct me if I'm misspeaking, I believe the SuperMatch feature will use nationwide statistics. So that would be a nationwide match. When you look into the results specifically in the scattergrams, that will be Wheatley specific data. So you saw that sample scattergram there. That will compare you to students from Wheatley who have applied to those colleges. The SuperMatch will match you based on national statistics. Any other questions? Oh, actually, while I have everyone, and I do believe the members of Ms. Gluck's caseload do already know, but Ms. Gluck will be taking a leave from us for a little while, just throughout the course of this spring. Her leave replacement, Ms. Samantha McCool, is someone we're very excited to be having join us, and I do believe she popped in tonight. Ms. McCool, if you wouldn't mind unmuting and just saying hello, she'll be meeting you all soon enough, but she wanted to come down and just kind of join in this evening and get a quick look at what to expect from Wheatley. Ms. McCool, are you here?
Hi, yeah.
Yeah,
so again, my name is Samantha McCool. It's nice to meet you guys, and I'm looking forward to working with you all eventually in March.
Great. Thank you, Ms. McCool. Do we have any other questions before I let everyone go? I know it was a long one, but again, any questions you don't have the opportunity to ask tonight, you'll be able to connect with your counselor on those individual planning meetings. Thank you, Dan. You'll be able to connect with your counselor on those individual planning meetings, as well as at any time. Please don't hesitate to give your counselor a call. All right. Well, everyone, please do have an excellent evening. Enjoy your night. Be safe. Stay warm. And enjoy. Thank you, everyone.